Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to this learning experience brought to you by Spot by NetApp. My name is Cody, and welcome back to Techstrong Learning. We've got an exciting presentation ahead, but before we dive into things, I have just a couple of notes I'd like to review with you. First of all, we are recording our session today. So if you miss any of our conversation, if you'd like to rewatch, if you'd like to share with your team, you will be receiving the recording via email shortly after we conclude this live session today. If you'd like to be a part of our conversation, there are a couple of ways to do so. The first option is to use the chat tab on the right side of your screen. So when you find that chat tab, I'd like you to let us know that it works by letting us know from where in the world you are joining from. Now, if you have any specific questions, we do want you to send those questions to the Q&A tab, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can toward the end of our program today. We do have a couple of polls that we'll be launching throughout, so keep an eye out for those as they pop up. And we will be picking two of our most engaged attendees to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So be sure to participate with us in the chat, in the Q&A, or at least fill out that post-webinar survey. All of them will qualify you for that giveaway. So today we are mastering the big five of Azure Cloud Infrastructure Optimization. And I'm joined today by Shon Harris, DevRel lead at Spot by NetApp. So Shon, thank you so much for joining us on Techstrong Learning. I'm going to let you dive right into things.
Hey, thanks, Cody. And thank you for everybody who's joining today. Like Cody said, my name is Shon Harris. I'm the Developer Relations Lead at Spot by NetApp. I'm based in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I come from a background of about 20 years of active IT operations experience. I have done everything from low-level help desk all the way up to running DevOps and SRE teams. I joined NetApp about a year ago to come talk and evangelize the cloud operations platform provided by NetApp. And so today we're going to talk about mastering the big five of Azure Cloud Infrastructure Optimization, how Spot by NetApp solutions can ensure that your Azure workloads run in a well-architected, secure, and continuously optimized model. So as we start moving to the workloads to the cloud, everything's going fine. We see that IT costs are reduced. We see increased scalability and flexibility with our infrastructure. And we also see that we can keep our cloud costs within budget. All great goals that we all have. But as usage grows and workloads grows, problems arise. We are asked to do things faster and accelerate our deployments. We are asked to increase the scalability and flexibility of our workloads and making sure that we can go faster and deploy at a more rapid pace and get our products to market. And while originally our IT costs were reduced, we see them start to increase. But with powerful tools, we can restore order. We can accelerate the deployments, we can reduce the IT costs, and we can increase the scalability and flexibility. And that's really what Spot by NetApp does while trying to ensure that you're well-architected, that you manage your infrastructure in accordance with the Microsoft recommended well-architected framework. So let's talk about these big five challenges. The first one is performance, which is just basically our infrastructure. How well are we utilizing our infrastructure? How well is it performing? How well is it responding to increases? Efficiency comes from the efficiency of using the cloud, but it also means are we releasing our code faster? Are we getting our product to market faster? And are we watching our costs? And how are we governing our cloud estate? And then how does that affect our work processes? All of these challenges align with the five pillars of the well-architected framework provided by Microsoft. So let's dive right in and start talking. The first one we're going to head on is performance. Azure virtual machines are relatively expensive and can sometimes have limited availability. The same can be said for large Kubernetes clusters with lots of node pools, using VM scale sets and trying to keep everything in line using multiple pricing models. Trying to keep that all under control is nearly impossible. The availability zones begin to get hard to visualize, It's hard to estimate and as your workloads grow, we have a harder time estimating cost and managing using the Azure portal. Azure Spot VMs and long-term reserved instances are particularly hard to manage because of how the Azure portal is set up. Azure is really set up to be an automated resource where you're using a lot of command line, but managing those RIs and those spot instances through the console are hard. The native cost management tools are far from maximizing savings and more about just simple reporting. And the Azure Marketplace has no offering of a consolidated enterprise-grade cloud optimizer. And one of our customers, Finova, says, optimizing Azure spend is impossible without a third-party solution. And as Azure grows in popularity and complexity, and thereby complexity, there's no solid third-party optimization tool except for the Spot platform. And so as we move on, let's talk about efficiency. What are our goals when we move to the cloud? Number one is obviously to simplify. We want to streamline our DevOps, our platform engineering, our IT ops, and all aspects of our operations and workflows by making our cloud data easily accessible and automating data-driven decisions. We want to optimize. We want to do more with the budget that we're given and have predictive optimization of our cloud commitments. And honestly, we really want to outperform. And when we say outperform, we want to scale confidently. We want to exceed the expectations of our internal and external users and have that competitive advantage and use powerful tools that make the best utilization, that get the best utilization out of our Azure resources. So when we talk about optimization, we start with virtual machines and traditional load balancers and infrastructure. And so our Elastigroup product does that by balancing distribution and load balancing inbound traffic against varied instance types and sizes, which guarantees optimal workload performance and infrastructure utilization. We'll talk about a little bit more about how we do that behind the scenes here in a bit. But then comes the predictive scaling and rebalancing. Managing infrastructure is hard. There is no one way that one team or one person or even your single DevOps team by themselves can do the predictive scaling and rebalancing by hand. Predictive infrastructure scaling means that Spot is watching your workloads and doing proactive detection of your utilization to figure out where Spot instances make sense. We watch interruptions to make sure that when we put you on, that when you're using a Spot instance, your applications stay highly available, fully utilized, and are getting you the most performance for the dollars that you're spending. And then infrastructure provisioning and pricing, using Spot's AI-driven selection on all cloud pricing models, Spot, on-demand, and financial commitments, allow us to deliver cost efficiency, scalability based on your workload, and the availability of your application. Behind the scenes, when it comes to your Kubernetes infrastructure, we do the same thing, just with Kubernetes pods and nodes. We still can go out and find the right mix of Spot, on-demand, and reserved instances. We use pod-driven auto-scaling and our advanced proprietary bin packing algorithm to make sure that we're putting your pods on the right nodes at the right time. And then we do it continuously behind the scenes to ensure that you're always right-sized. And it doesn't matter what control plane you use, if you use COPS, if you use ECS, if you use AKS, or whatever control plane you're using, we work with it because we sit in between your control plane and your cloud provider. And while we are multi-cloud, and this conversation is really around Microsoft Azure, excuse me, we do work in all three of the major clouds. So let's talk about governance. And when we say governance, we take it beyond just the idea of governing your cloud estate. We wrap in visualization and observability, two new big buzzwords in cloud computing, and we help you enable those guardrails. Why? Because you can't optimize what you can't see. The Spot console, which we'll give a demo of as part of this presentation, gives you a single pane of glass to optimize your resources across your entire Azure workload. From FinOps and cost reporting to identifying waste to virtual machines and load balancers and your containerized application, we are constantly watching your environment in ways you possibly can't, which allows you to get time back and be able to do things that are more valuable than trying to watch your infrastructure. We have continuously and automate the optimization of your environment. As we said, there's no one person or even one team that can ensure that your workloads are running fully optimized or running on the right underlying infrastructure. That means, and your containers are packed correctly for cost and performance. That machine learning algorithm that we talk about gives your infrastructure teams important time back, allowing them to rapidly innovate and do things that are more substantial and visible to your organization without having to manually manage that infrastructure by hand. And then we take the approach of shifting left with automation, shifting security left with automation. We have a new tool that we're going to show called Spot Security, which allows us to take this governance and observability and those guardrails that you use or that you can use to ensure that you're running in a secure manner. We use the MITRE attack framework and some other tools, and we'll go into that on in a slide here in a bit. But we give proactive alerting and automated remediation using our low-code, no-code automation tool to ensure security is placed at the top of mind for everybody working in your cloud operations. Talking about visualization and governance, further comprehensive cost management. We provide intuitive visualizations, recommendations, and best practice checks that help eliminate resource waste and automate the cleanup of wasted resources and the acquisition of new financial commitments through our automation tools. You need to, and before you can really govern, like we said about not being able to manage what you can't see, you need to know who is running what and why they're running it. We can easily implement reporting and chargebacks to departments and projects without having to manually update them. Because Spot is a premier member and a governing board member of the FinOps Foundation, this ensures that we follow the FinOps framework for cloud operations to ensure that we're giving you a unified approach to your FinOps practice. And then we give visibility easily to stakeholders. Knowing how your Azure workloads are running is great, but if you have to give somebody access to your Azure console, it gets hard. So you can't give those updates easily. Our products are built to provide quick, data-driven, and actionable insights to all stakeholders within your organization to quickly provide answers to the big questions and make it easier when audit time runs around. And we drive that even further by making it so that your application workloads really benefit from less administration and much more action. We provide zero-touch data infrastructure, fully managed operation and support for open source databases with nodes optimized for performance and price. We optimize your data workloads to ensure that your spend, your settings, your instant scaling in your big data workloads are managed. And we can help you deliver continuous delivery with confidence, allowing you to transform from gradual deployments to having automated gradual deployments in minutes to benefit from the benefits of Kubernetes, continuous deployment at scale, minimizing your production errors, automating continuous verification and traffic management with smarter rollbacks and granular visibility. Which brings us to work processes. Again, when we break down those 5 topics, we talk about infrastructure optimization, gaining that operational efficiency and SLA-backed availability by continuously optimizing your Azure resources. This includes your VMs, your Azure Kubernetes service, your storage, ensuring that your application performance and availability and resource utilization and cost are all accounted for when it comes to how your workloads are running. Governance and visibility, again, we give that full visibility and understanding to your cloud's Azure, to your organization's Azure estate, allowing you to take immediate action to eliminate waste and vulnerabilities and stay compliant, audit ready, and on budget while reducing the administrative overhead needed to ensure that you can do all that and giving your time back to your teams to allow them to develop, release faster, and make your application and putting enhancements into your application. And then again, from application services, we expand your CD pipelines with automated deployments, stress-free code releases, building applications faster with fully managed and fully optimized data infrastructure behind the scenes. So what makes Spot for CloudOps a little bit different? We're an established brand. We've been in this market for over 10 years. We're a part of a household enterprise vendor. We're part of NetApp. That means that we benefit from the level of automation and the technology provided by NetApp on their storage side. In fact, NetApp is the only cloud provider that provides first-party storage services using our proprietary storage technology in all three clouds. And we have existing enterprise success stories from a number of customers in their cloud estate. Azure, or the Spot platform for Azure, is developed in partnership and purpose-built with Microsoft, which gives us seamless integration into the native Azure architecture and gives us deep insights and precise use cases specifically for Azure. We're all-inclusive and we're turnkey. And when we say turnkey, we mean it takes us about 30 minutes to be able to start analyzing your data, ensuring that you're working within that well-architected framework. Proprietary code and spearheading Azure Ops innovation allows us to develop faster. And as Microsoft releases new technologies and new features and new services inside of Azure, we're right there to make sure that we can support it. And we have an unmatched support availability and SLA. And then I think we had a poll here for a bit. I'm going to stop screen sharing. And we'll get to the poll. How would you rate your current level of infrastructure automation? We'll look at some of the results before we go on. Oops. I can't see how to get that up there. So about 35% of the respondents have a problem with FinOps. 17 have some infrastructure management problems and automation problems, and then security problems. We'll talk about your security problems here shortly. And let's go back to the
So Shon, we actually launched poll 1 a little bit earlier, and we have poll 2 going right now. So we've done 2 of those polls.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure that I was seeing it correctly. So, because I can't see my screen behind the scenes, so I want to make sure we got those. Sorry about that. So let's talk about FinOps, visualization and cost. The biggest problems are, oops, where did we go? The biggest problems that we have when it comes to cost management is the lack of visibility and keeping costs in check. Do you have a good view of all your cloud inventory, of all the services and products that you use inside of Azure? Do you know how to charge back your cost of business units, applications, or specific geos, or other parts of your business even? If you don't literally move the dollars, do you show back to educate teams on what they're spending? How do you manage buying cloud services, commitments, and financial commitments from your cloud providers? Do you know your commitment coverage and overall discounts? And do you use one or more security products to manage your cloud resources? And how mature are your security processes? These are all important questions that you need to be able to focus on. And if you can't show it, how do you explain them? So because Spot has a fully turnkey solution with Spot Eco, we can help you get the most out of your cloud commitments with the minimum risk. We can automate and optimize your cloud commitment purchasing. We can manage to maximize cost savings and utilization with minimum spend and risk. This allows you to reduce time spent on capacity planning because our tools are watching your workloads and able to show you what you need based on your utilization. Cost Intelligence, a new feature that we recently released, gives you actionable insights on your multi-cloud environment. Multi-cloud is becoming more and more of a reality as we go through, as people want to make sure that their bases are covered. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, but you still have to maintain the well-architected framework, and you still have to make sure that you're optimizing for cost. So Cost Intelligence allows you to do this by quickly and easily identifying savings and waste, flagging problems immediately, and it gives you interactive dashboards that stakeholders can use to drill down reports and do best practice checks and make informed long-term business decisions that might be out of the hands of your DevOps or SRE teams or your platform engineering teams. Billing Engine allows you to simplify complex invoicing. This is especially helpful for managed service providers who are providing services to third parties inside of Azure. It allows you to simplify invoicing. It enables an accurate chargeback to cost centers and track the success of billing management. And then you see one there that kind of looks out of place, but it really does fit. Our Cloud Checker product allows you to manage multi-cloud environments in a single pane of glass. This allows you to get insightful visibility, best practice checks, and billing automation to better manage cloud costs and optimize your resources. But one of the other benefits of Cloud Checker is it keeps track of what you've remediated inside of your audits, or so that when it comes to audits, you have that remediation action that you took to fix problems within your environment. And we can watch multiple different compliance programs through the Cloud Checker pane of glass. Cost Intelligence specifically focuses on FinOps misalignment, making extremely flexible cloud data visualization through our new UI. A deep cloud cost and resource analysis and flexible customizable reporting allows you to track ingestion, normalization, and display that data in accordance with the focus framework from the FinOps Foundation. And we talked about Billing Engine, but Billing Engine, it gives you that reporting, that deep billing reporting from the cloud providers, allowing you to do policy-based customizable chargeback and showbacks to cost centers. So what does it look like? Creating a commitment strategy is hard. It's hard to calculate what you need. It's hard to forecast how that market's going to change. And let's be honest, we make it hard. Azure is very hard to buy those commitments just through the regular glass. Developing and executing and continuously optimizing your commitment strategy becomes increasingly difficult at scale. And you can see here this animated GIF that shows bunches of colors, but this is actually some real-time data or not real-time, but a screenshot of data that's coming in from the Spot marketplace, showing us what is changing inside of the Azure Spot environment. Most organizations missed out on these cost savings or generate waste with unused commitments that they either forgot about or aren't using correctly. Spot helps you solve that by automating your capacity management. So that's from the FinOps and the visualization and cost management perspective. So execution is the next one. How confident are you that your workloads run on the most effective and right-sized virtual machines or load balancers? How much of your time is spent managing that infrastructure? What about your containerized workloads? Are they running on the most cost-effective and right-sized infrastructure? How many of your resources are going unused or underutilized because you don't know what you have and you're not able to put stuff on it? Do you have visibility and automation in the continuous delivery aspect of your CI/CD pipelines? What happens if something goes wrong? Do you have the ability to roll back? And do you have automation for the repetitive tasks inside of your CloudOps practice? For example, right-sizing infrastructure can be very hard. What about when you combine that with needing to remediate and be proactive when it comes to security vulnerabilities? What about approving configuration changes? Spot is purpose-built to make it so that you can automate a lot of these. And if we go back and we talk about our automation platform, Ocean, for containers and Elastigroup for virtual machines, you can see here that in this diagram, that we have 16 total vCPUs on one node that's using 47% of its utilization. We have 18% on 6 vCPUs, and we have 35% of utilization on 12 virtual CPUs. Because we can do the predictive scaling and rebalancing, and we're watching your workloads, the predictive infrastructure scaling means that we are constantly running simulations behind the scenes to figure out which infrastructure is going to work best. And then we go out and we acquire a mix of instances that meet your workload specific requirements. You can see here on this third pillar, we are using the mix of spot instances, which are delineated in magenta. We're using on-demand capacity to scale out, which is the blue box, and then we're using reserved capacity, and we're making a good mix to make sure that our AI-driven selection of your cloud pricing models are working to deliver the cost, efficiency, and availability. The same can be said for our containerization. We see the same infrastructure mix here, but when it comes to containers, it's harder. How do you know what services need a GPU and what instances to put it on? How do you know which ones need to be on on-demand instances? And then how do you pack those pods onto the individual nodes and keep everything running? Our AI and machine learning behind the scenes allows you to ensure that you're continuously right-sizing your node size, but also packing those pods so that your application is running in the most efficient way possible. Excuse me. I've got a little bit of a congestion here. So when it comes to security, what is Spot Security? Since it's a new product that we've talked about on this call. Spot Security gives you total visibility to understand the risk impact due to cloud misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, threats, and more. It allows you to shift security left, which means we're putting security at the forefront of your developers, your DevOps, and your platform engineering teams to eliminate the highest impact risks in the shortest period with built-in incident response. And it allows you to prioritize, again, with those actionable insights, impact maps, and high-risk asset groups. You can create a prioritized remediation plan for your environment. And why is that important? Because if you're not patching high impacting risks immediately, you're not ensuring adherence to your compliance standards, you're lacking internal security staff and expertise, you're lacking proper change control, and you're needing to reduce your signal to noise ratio. If you have any of these problems on the left-hand side, you are not running in a well-architected framework. And it's important that you run these workloads well architected because it makes your support and your cloud experience as a whole easier. Gartner points out that 99% of successful hacks on cloud infrastructure are due to customer errors of misconfigurations or mismanagement. IBM says the average time to identify and remediate a breach due to cloud misconfiguration is 244 days. And if you get hit by a breach, 60% of small to mid companies close within 6 months of that breach. So how does Spot Security work in the well-architected framework? We make sure that we're watching your cloud security posture. We take in the CIS benchmarks, we take in NIST, we take in ISO, we take in the HIPAA high trust, the PCI, all these framework compliance, and we put them into our proprietary tool that allows you to do event analysis and anomaly detection that we run through a machine learning algorithm. Then we add the MITRE attack framework and our Spot Connect tool to do your detection and response. And then we're constantly watching your IAM users, groups, roles, your buckets and blob storage, and your message topics, so that we can make sure that your virtual machines and your virtual infrastructure are running. And the best part, it's agentless because we're watching your cloud, not your individual infrastructure. Spot Connect allows you to integrate with 30 plus integrations built in and many more under development. We allow you to build complex workflows in record time with a visual drag and drop visual builder. This allows you to enhance your automation by running machine speed executions advanced triggers with our out-of-the-box templates. So here's an example. You can use Ocean you can use Spot Connect to right size and update your Kubernetes resources by having a GitHub action that calls Spot and allows you to do that right sizing and goes in and reports to Slack that it's done. Same with when it comes to Elastigroup, which is our virtual machine tool. You can have somebody fire a Slack message, give us approval via Slack, and then tell Elastigroup to go operate to go make the infrastructure change. And we're cloud agnostic. We leverage the capabilities of any cloud provider to create your automation workflows. Ocean CD that we talked about, we have to enhance your Kubernetes delivery and your CD process. So we allow you to do gradual deployment using our CD tool that allows continuous verification of your code, automatic rollback to prevent incidents following a code change or a build or a rollout. We are constantly watching your infrastructure through the build, test, and deployment preparation. And then we're making sure that you're launching your infrastructure continuously optimized and continuously verifying that your infrastructure is working correctly. So if we go back to our big 5 challenges that we talked about at the beginning, the performance, the efficiency, the cost, and the governance, and the work processes, excuse me. We end up back here one more time. So we've talked about gaining operational efficiency. We've talked about having SLA backed storage or backed availability by continuously optimizing your Azure resources, be it virtual machines, be it AKS, be it your backend storage, for ensuring that performance of availability, resource utilization, and cost. This gives your stakeholders, like we said, full visibility and understanding into what is going on in your cloud, in your Azure cloud estate, and allows you to take immediate action to eliminate that waste and vulnerabilities, and enhances your CI/CD pipelines with automated gradual deployments, making it so that your teams are focusing on the most important aspects of your day-to-day operation. One more thing I want to hit on before we move to questions is open source data technologies. As open source grows and databases become more essential into our backend infrastructure as practitioners, you're probably using Cassandra in some way, Kafka, Postgres, OpenSearch, Redis, Spark, Cadence. Are you running EMR? Are you using Databricks or just an open source version of Apache Spark? As these data management or as these open source data management tools come more into prevalence and become more crucial to our infrastructure, we've noticed that there are skill gaps. Not everybody can keep up on all of these open source data tools. Operational overload, we're being asked to do more. We're being asked to do more faster. And we're seeing the costs go out of control as we start to use these tools. So Spot by NetApp has come up with a solution that addresses this. And it's called InstaCluster. Again, cloud agnostic, but we are able to come in and not only do consulting and support, but also manage your Cassandra, Kafka, OpenSearch, Redis, Apache Spark, Postgres, and Cadence infrastructure, giving you that comfort that you're allowed to that you can go in and have experts behind the scenes helping manage your open source database platforms with enterprise service level agreements. Any data layer problem, we ensure that your operations are up to date and working and work as a trusted partner. And we do certified and tested builds of these products on managed infrastructure. And we can 100% support your open source data management problems, including gaps in your team, right? Even if you just need somebody to back you up for a little bit, we have that ability. So let's look at what the platform looks like. I'm going to swap out here to the browser. And if there are any questions while I'm doing that, We can address those. Oh, let's go to our PC now. Yep. So if we go to the overview dashboard, come on, there we go. This is the overview of Spot by NetApp. You can see here in our Azure savings potential, we have 29 resource groups. We're missing about $27,000 in monthly missed savings, where we could have an 89.97 savings rate. Our current estimated cost for the month is 31,000. And if we went fully optimized, the tool is telling us that we could have $3,000 in cost, saving us 89% of our money. You can see here we've stacked the products in a very easy to follow manner. We have Elastigroup, our virtual machine and load balancing and traditional infrastructure tool. Ocean, our Kubernetes management tool. Ocean for Spark, which basically takes everything that you use in Kubernetes for Ocean, but applies it to your big data workloads. Our Ocean CD tool. Eco, our FinOps tool. Cost intelligence and billing engine that we went over. Spot security and Connect. And I'm going to stop because I see some questions coming up. And let's address Lynn's question. What role do monitoring and analytics play in identifying optimizations within the Azure cloud? That is a great question. Monitoring and analytics play a huge role in identifying those optimization opportunities. Microsoft has made a lot of improvements over the last 6 months or so to their analytics and monitoring, allowing you to see more into your state, but it's still kind of hard. It's still kind of clunky to go in and put those reports together. The thing that sets Spot apart is because we purpose built these applications and these functions for Azure, we have pre-canned reports that you can start using immediately. Steve asks, Azure uses AI such as cognitive search, helping on the infrastructure optimization. Do we have to use the Mayo 100 and Cobalt 100 chips to fully utilize the AI infrastructure? And how can MS Copilot for Azure and how the MS Copilot for Azure could help? That's a great question. Cognitive search is a little bit of a tool that I've played with, but I don't have a lot of insight into when it comes to the Maya 100 and Cobalt chips when it comes to their inference. Those are for building big data work. Those kind of instances are for building big data workloads. While we support the acquisition of them, I need some more information about kind of your use case to kind of talk deeper at it. Richard says, it seems like pricing for AI workloads is volatile and will be for a while. Is there any help with managing this? Yes, that is where we come in. We can, because of how we work, and we'll look at the controller here, because we are running those simulations, we are constantly helping you find the best mix of instances, optimizing them in real time, bin packing them so that you're getting the most utilization out of your workload, and helping you kind of normalize those the AI workload pricing. Steve says Microsoft Azure outlines 6 AI principles: accountability, inclusiveness, reliability, safety, fairness, transparency, and privacy and security. Of such, fairness focuses on users with automation. It could definitely help with reducing manpower. What will happen to those workers who could be impacted because of AI? That's a great question, Steve, because you make a great point. As AI grows, are we going to be engineering people out of positions? I don't think so. I think that you're always going to need talented engineers who are able to help manage this infrastructure. Will it make processes easier? Will it make it easier for us to deploy resources? Yeah, we can do that. But you're still going to need the human behind the scenes helping to plan these workloads. Giving your time back doesn't mean we're reducing manpower and we're reducing jobs using AI. It means we're allowing you to take and pivot what you're paying these engineers to do. It means that they're going out and finding new ways to make your workloads run. It means they're going out and making proactive, important changes to your infrastructure that help your infrastructure run smoother and your application grow. So we're not trying to AI people out of jobs as much as we're trying to AI the behind the scenes automation that take a lot of time. For example, when I first started working in the Azure cloud, I spent a lot of time doing chargebacks because there was no automated way in Azure for me to do chargebacks to department. So every month I'd have to go in and I would spend 2 days a month going in and making sure everybody was getting charged back appropriately for their workloads. Now I can go and I can set up an automated report inside of our FinOps tool and go and do that behind the scenes, which allows me to go work on whatever security problem I'm having or work with my developers to figure out what they're planning down the pipe and be more strategic and and have a vision for how my infrastructure is going to grow versus being tactical and responding to the day-to-day operations of my infrastructure. So automation isn't automating people out of jobs, it's automating it so that companies who are hiring expensive engineers and expensive resources are getting the most utilization out of their employees and their groups. Richard asks, do you have feature parity of your offering across the three big CSPs? Any cross CSP issues with your offering that folks seem to be using two or three of them in production should be aware of? That's a great question. As our product evolves and changes happen, and we work with our partners at Azure, AWS, and Google, we're working behind the scenes to get feature parity. There are some areas on our FinOps tool that don't have feature parity. There are differences between the cloud providers that we can't support across. There are features in AWS that we can't support when you're trying to use it with Azure. We try to delineate these and we try to inform those so that we can keep abreast of them. But there are simple things that we can't do. So, like in AWS, we can go in, we can help you automate RI transfers between using the RI marketplace. We can do that in AWS, but there's no mechanism to do that inside of Azure. In Azure, there's no way for us to go and automate the what is it that we can't automate it in Azure? In Azure, there's no way for us to automate some aspects of your savings plan utilization because they do it differently. And so while we work hand in hand with the partners, there are scalar specific features that may not be available and your mileage may vary. And there may be times where you need to augment using other tools. And we have people that use a mix of our tools. We have people that use Spot. We have with Carpenter, we have people that use EKS CTL with Spot. We have people that use specific providers and plugins with their Spot infrastructure. So these are on a case by case basis. And if you're more interested in going through that and doing a demo with one of our SAs who can show you the differences, we'd be happy to set that up as a follow up to this webinar. That answers all the questions that we've got in there right now. So let's go back to the demo of the platform. So when we talk about Elastigroup, we can see here in Elastigroup, in our Azure account, we have 24 running Spot VMs and we have 0 running on demand. Our on demand hours from November 6th to date is 21,000 hours. We've used 36,000 Spot hours. This account has spent $5,000 on on-demand costs, which would have cost us $40,000. So we've saved $32,000 or 80% of our spend by using that mix of on-demand and Spot instances. If I break this out here, you can see further how we break those out. The actual cost and the hours. The actual cost is in purple. Excuse me. And you can see here a day-by-day breakdown of the reporting of your cost, how many hours you've used, and then what the spread looked like over your virtual machines. Spot usage by hours. Again, you can see how many hours in the green are Spot instances, how many are on demand. We've used 720, 800 moves, and then you can see our VM count and our average number of VMs. So you can see on December 2nd, we were at 92, and we started backing off, and now we're down to the 62. You can get detailed breakdown of your CPU counts by virtual machines. So you can see the instance type and the breakdown of the CPUs, and then the breakdown by lifecycle. How many are on Spot? How many Spot cores have we used versus on-demand cores? This gives you these are those insights that we're talking about right out of the box. Just by hooking it up, we start ingesting this immediately. And you can see here, we can go into the details of the Elasta group. We can see what's running on demand. You can see most of it's been Spot. We've had one Spot running instance, and we've got 10. And you can see which ones we're using. We can break it out by the virtual machines, where they're running, what their health is, what our deployment cycle looks like. This allows us to go see who are the blue VMs and the green VMs, how that rollout went, and then we give you a detailed log that shows you how we're detaching and attaching these VMs. And you're looking over here on the left-hand side, and you see stateful nodes. Well, that means we can support your stateful applications, meaning we can put your stateful workloads on Spot instances, getting you that immediate savings without impacting stateful applications. Click on a node here. You can see what region we're running it in. You can see how we're setting it up. And then you can see the resources that we're using. You can see that we've got a data disk and an OS disk, and we can bounce it around as needed. Where we've been running this instance for 30 hours, we would have paid $6.11, but I've only paid 93, which gives me a savings of 84%. I can go, this was working earlier, but the monitoring just gives you resource utilization, and the log shows you what you've been doing and how we're moving your instances around. And the stateful nodes basically work very simply. Anytime a block changes on a disk that you've marked as stateful, we're taking a snapshot, and we're offensively getting prepared to replace based on the lifecycle of the Spot instance that we have it on, so that as that instance gets terminated, we've already replaced it and put it into place. Richard asked the question, sorry if I missed this, but do your cost visibility tools help mask cost to business value creation at any kind of granular level? A long cost pull in the tent may totally be worth it in terms of business value creation. And likewise, many small pulls in the tent may be flying under the radar of failing to create business value for the spend. That is a great question, Richard. And once I move into the FinOps tools from the infrastructure tools, we will address that exact question. So if you'll hang with me for a minute or two, we'll be right there. So if we go into an Elastic group, I just want to show you what it looks like as we're managing the configuration. We can pick a name. This is where we set our capacity settings, which makes it a lot easier to see than in the Azure blades that you would see in their console. And you can set here your target, your minimum, and your max. So we have a target of 12, we have a minimum of 0, and a max instance of 16. I can go in here and I can say, I want 8 of those machines to be on demand, and it will make that mix. Or I can say Spot VMs, and I can set the slider to set the percentage of how big I want my Spot VMs to be. I have it cranked to 100 right now, and so it's going to try and always use Spot VMs before we put you back on demand. Cluster orientation, you can set your strategy here. That means, are we going to balance our cluster for cost, or are we going to balance it for availability? Availability means we're going to make sure that we're using the best markets for availability within your Elastic group, and cost means we're going to prioritize based on cost, which means we're going to take availability into the consideration, but cost is always going to be more important. These two checkboxes are really important to understand. Fallback to on-demand. Fallback to on-demand means if we can't find a Spot instance, we will put you on demand. But checking this box below it, the continuous optimization box, once we find a price model and we check every 30 seconds, we are going to start moving you back to Spot instances as soon as it's available. And we can also set a custom policy on that basically says only use Spot instances on a specific day of the week. during a specific window. And I'm going to cancel that. I want to go back into that tab really quick. So here's our compute. This is where we can go and say what instances we want to use. We can select all of the instances and we ingest them as they come online. And we can go and select based individual sizes. This includes GPUs. We talked about GPUs and AI specific. If you're running virtual machines that need GPUs and you're doing specific stuff, we can do that. And if you're using the inference cores, the Maya 100 and the Cobalt, those instances are available. This is where you can pull in marketplace offers specific from publishers. You can set custom image resources. You can select your shared images, and you can set all of your networking infrastructure, including your login information through our portal. Again, making it easier to navigate and identify what you're trying to do inside without having to go around all of the blades inside of the Azure console. Health tech types, that's pretty standard. And auto healing. If we can figure out if a VM's going under, we're able to go and start fixing it proactively. And then our additional configuration allows you to put in shutdown scripts, custom data, and then schedule your environment, which allows you to effectively scale down to zero. The scale down to zero is important because we are the only scaler that can do a scale down to zero while giving you the time to boot back up. And we can set a cron job that allows you to do that. When we talked about scaling, I've got to cancel out, I'm sorry, and go back in. When we talk about scaling, this is where we can set our specific scaling policies based on CPU credits. We can be very granular with those. And then the next one that we want to review is really important because it allows us to see what we've done, but it also allows us to export it as JSON. Why is that important? Because it allows us to export it to whatever your configuration tool, infrastructure's code tool that you're using is. This includes an edit mode so that you can go edit your code by hand and allows you to export it as a JSON file right there. So that's the virtual machine. So as we go into Ocean, Ocean again is our, oops, in case you didn't know, new Ocean for AKS is available. Ocean is our Kubernetes optimization tool, which takes the best of Elastic Group, but applies it to your Azure Kubernetes clusters. So again, we can see here that we are using 37 nodes out of 41 for 5,000 hours. We've saved $263. We would have spent $324, but we've only spent 61 and we're saving 80%. If I click this out, I can get a quick 30-day view. Maybe, there we go. And you can see here how that changes on the fly. And this allows us to go in and look at the environment. We don't have headroom configured on this cluster because we allow Ocean to manage it. But if I did have headroom requirements, you would see those here, which means I can reserve my cores, my memory, my pods. I have 271 pods running right now with 0 pending and 0 unscheduled. If I blast that out to 7 days, you can see here how that runs and what's been unscheduled. And you can see here I'm running 31 instances currently on demand and running 6 spot instances. If I hit my 7-day blowout, you can see how that changes and how it moves around. When we talk about right sizing, which is really what we're here for, you can go in and this is where we show you what Ocean is trying to do with the right sizing of your environment. And this is taking a minute to load, but you can see here the impact. You can see here the automation requests. So right now, the export service that we're running is requesting 4 virtual CPU cores. But Ocean says, well, that's embarrassing. Ocean says you can decrease that to 4 1,000ths of a core. And you're calling 5,000, you're calling 5 gigabytes of memory. Go ahead and keep that. So we can automate that and go in and basically say, when you see that, do exactly what you see. Because we're running those simulations every 30 seconds, watching your workload and running the simulations on your cluster using the controller, this allows us to see, to get real-time actionable insights and automate it. Same here. We're requesting 4 CPUs. We only need partial of 1 CPU, and we can automate those. We can do this down at the namespace level. So you can see deployments, you can see what's running. You can see here the core DNS queue. The core DNS is using 83% of this CPU on 3 pods and 60 memory. Same with the ingress and egress controllers. We're using 44% of our CPU. So you can get real-time actions into what's going on and how it's working. I can click into the service. Sorry, this takes a minute to load just because we're having. But you can do it at the namespace level. The pods will show you the pods where they're running. You can click into each pod. You can see the configuration behind it, the requests, the memory, and then just how everything's running. Same with services. You get a lot of insights that you wouldn't from the single click of a button that you wouldn't be able to get. VNGs are another thing that we support. You can see here exactly how your VNGs are running, how many pods, how many nodes, what labels and taints that you have, and then how your nodes are running, and you can sort that. So I want to point out here in the allocation, I'm using 94% of my CPU right now. Normally that would freak me out if I came in and saw a server running 94%, but because of how Ocean works, I have the confidence that I'm able to use that much CPU and memory and not jam up my system because we're constantly watching it. This is what optimization is. It's getting the most benefit for the least amount of spend while ensuring that my workload is staying available. I can roll my cluster directly from the Spot console if I wanted to, and then my detailed log that I can go into. And you can see here, we were going to replace an instance, but it's out of strategy for this specific virtual machine. A pod with the restrict scale down label is currently running on the node. So this means a pod, we respect what your pod is trying to control as well, so that we're not taking down your application. Last 24 hours, you can just get more. And then view details. Oh, that's embarrassing. But view details allows you to get more details into what's actually going on, but it's not showing up right now. So that's Ocean. Same tech behind the scenes for Elastigroup. I'm going to skip the Ocean for Spark aspect of it because basically Ocean and Ocean for Spark are the same product, just one's for your Spark workloads. Let's get to the FinOps tools while we're here. This allows me to have that dashboard that we were talking about, again, multi-cloud. I can come in here. And I can see here, this is what my commitments are. This is my amortized commitment for RIs and savings plan coverage in my Azure estate. You can see here I'm using $31,000 of reservations, and I'm using $21,000 of savings plans inside of Azure. Here are the details about how I've acquired them. I can see the reservation ID. I can see the purchasing subscription. These are all going to be the same, but if I had a multiple subscription Azure environment, I could see which subscription called it. I can see which subscription graceful name ordered it, and then I can see who ordered what. I can see who got a virtual machine. I can see my commitment timeline, all from one pane of glass, and I can see what my billing is. I can see my one-time recurring charges, and then I can see that Eco is the one that did it. Eco is very simple. If I go down farther, I can see what my utilization is. You can see I'm getting 100% utilization out of most of my subscriptions, but I can sort this. And then I can export a CSV that gives it to me. And I can see how much over here, what it would cost me to run this reservation on demand, what I've saved, and how much I've used at the individual reservations level. Same here with the savings plan. I can see what it would cost me to run that savings plan on demand. I can see what it generated and how much I've used. Reports. These are the reports I was talking about where we can go in and we can do the chargebacks. This is going to take a minute to load. We've got about 10 minutes left. I want to save time for questions. But here is an example of some subsets. You can see here where I have set up cost centers and demos of chargebacks, and you can see how I'm spending that, and then the workflows from the that we've set up for some automation. Really quick, we'll look at spot security because we talked about it. Here is, I'm going to take this out of it. Here's our security. Right from this dashboard, I can see 64 identified risks, how many security roles I've passed, what my highest risks are, and I can go through and I can start the remediation while keeping a log of what I've done so that at audit time, when my auditor says, how did you automate these vulnerabilities or these risks, I can give playback that allows me to keep that in compliance. You can see here that we have no vulnerabilities on our stuff, but you can also see the topology. Where our topology is going, the threats, the threat landscape that we're working with, the MITRE framework that we were talking about, which accounts have the most threats, a full inventory, and then our compliance based on whatever compliance program we're working on. So with that, I'm going to switch my screen. We'll put up the final poll.
So Shon, I just wanted to let you know we are at the top of the hour, but I did launch that poll a little bit earlier for us.
Okay.
So we can take a look at those results. And let me just have them refresh, but it looks like 75% say some of their cloud is managed by IAC, and only 6% say all of it. 19% say none.
Wow, that's a lot. And
I'll go and
so
just pop those on the screen. But Shon, I really appreciate the time that you took to run us through.
I'm sorry that we went over on time, but I would like to invite anybody who wants to know more to visit our website at spot.io. We have a developer resource portal that you can visit at developer.netapp.com. And then we have a 5,000 member Discord community where you can talk with practitioners from across the industry and NetApp support engineers at netappdiscord.com.
Awesome. Well, hey, Shon, would you mind putting that in the chat while I close out, do some closing announcements, just so everyone has a quick link to click?
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Shon, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. It's been such a pleasure learning from you at the front end and then seeing how Spot by NetApp works throughout this last 30-minute demo. So thank you so much for all the time and expertise that goes into really knowing this product.
Hey, and you're very welcome. And please, if you have any questions, I'm always available. I've put my email address up on the closing slide. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer questions for anybody that wants to know more about optimizing their cloud estate, especially in Azure.
Perfect. Well, thank you once more. A couple of closing remarks for our audience. Just a reminder that our session today was recorded. We will be sending you the recording via email here shortly, but you can also find it on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, and it will be in the on-demand section. Additionally, we will be selecting 2 of our most engaged attendees to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So if you were extra engaged with our webinar today, you might just be selected. So keep an eye out on your email. I'll be sending that out here in the next hour or so. Shon, thank you. I'd like to thank Spot by NetApp for sponsoring our program. And to everyone here, thank you so much for joining us. I know we went a couple minutes over, but we know we've got good stuff to show you, and so we're happy you stuck around. With that, we hope to see everyone at a future Techstrong Learning Experience. Have a great rest of your day, and you may now disconnect.